Hello everybody. Today we are joining Mr. Zequeira with myself, Nolan, class of 2024, and Gianni, class of 2024 as well, to look personally into Mr. Zequeira's time at St. John's and to how he has affected our school and to how he will continue to affect our school even after he has departed our community in June.
What attracted you to come to St. John's originally?
Well, I mean, as I often point out to folks, I was a St. John's parent before anything else, right? So our oldest son, Zachary, was a freshman when the opportunity presented itself to join this community. But you know, my connection to St. John's, or at least my awareness of St. John's, started much, much earlier than that. My sophomore year at Holy Cross, there were a couple of guys on my hall, 2 roommates, who were both members of the class of 1990 here at St. John's, and we're very proud of this place. And I remember that during our sophomore year, they brought me onto campus. They just wanted to show me St. John's. So I remember vividly kind of pulling up the long driveway. The campus looked very different back then than it did now. But their kind of love of the school was something that always stayed with me because I myself am a product of an all-boys school from 7th through 12th grade. And so when we were thinking about that for our son, this was the right option for him. You know, and then I would say that when I first moved back to Worcester in 2011 to serve as president at Nativity School of Worcester, you know, inevitably as a couple, as a family, you talk about, okay, how long is this journey going to be? How long is this stop on our journey going to be? And I remember telling my wife kind of early on in the summer of 2011, well, there's really only 2 places in central Massachusetts where I would work, and they are Nativity and St. John's. And I've been very, very blessed and fortunate to have served both schools.
Excellent. Yeah, it's really, it just goes to show like how the appeal of St. John's goes well beyond the students and the faculty at it. A common misconception is that any person who goes to St. John's loves it and those are the only people. But as evidenced by your experiences, it can lead anyone to St. John's, and just goes to show you how great of a school it is and how great of an institution it can be.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I believe very strongly, you know, I'm, again, product of an all-boys education, and I believe that to be, I think single-sex education in middle school and high school is really important. Our daughter is now at Notre Dame and having a wonderful experience there in her first year, and again, just a big fan of the school, you know, decades before I even started here.
Mr. Zequeira, you mentioned previously that you were first involved in the St. John's community as a parent to your son. How did working at St. John's as an administrator couple with your experience as a parent?
You know, I think I think honestly, I think being a parent, I think when you're a parent and you work in education, you know, because I got married a bit later, I think, than most people my age, and you know, started a family a little bit later, and so I have a very, very clear memory of kind of what I was like as a classroom teacher or as an administrator before I had my own kids, and then afterwards, right? I think it changes your perspective in a good and healthy, positive way. You know, I constantly am, whenever I'm having conversations with students or having conversations with families or having conversations with my colleagues, I always kind of keep in the forefront of my mind, how would I want my family and my child to be treated in a situation? And as you can imagine, in my job, I have wonderful and amazing and celebratory conversations, but over the course of my 13 years as a head of school, I've had to have some really, really challenging conversations with students and families. But I think it changes your perspective. Not saying that it makes you better or worse at what you do, but it just changes your perspective when you think about how would I want my child to be treated. And I hope that folks feel that in the work that I've done here over the last 8 years, that I've always tried to put the students first, because ultimately that's who we're missioned to serve, but also recognizing that parents and guardians and families play a very important role in the education of their child at the school, and also the fact that the alumni and the broader community, you know, they support the work that we do here every day at St. John's in order to make it affordable and accessible to people. So, but ultimately, I think at the end of the day, being a parent and being in education now for 30 years, I've always tried to place students first, and that's kind of been a goal since day one.
as you reflect on your time here at St. John's, how did you feel that you lived or did not live up to expectations that you had for yourself when you were first hired?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'll leave it for folks to comment on, sort of, I mean, I can reflect on, I set very high expectations for myself in whatever I do. It's one of the things, having been sort of educated in the Jesuit world, there's this concept in Jesuit, in kind of Ignatian spirituality called the magis, right? The more, right? That everything we do, we try to do more in the service of God, in service of the church, or in service of the institution that we're working in. And so I hope I've approached this job with very high personal and professional expectations. At the end of the day, I very much believe that at the core and the foundation of good education and the work that we do are relationships. And so I hope that, even though St. John's, very different experience being the head of school at St. John's than being the head of school at Nativity, where at Nativity I had 63 students and families. I had alumni, but it was not nearly 12,000 alumni like we have here. And so, but I hope that folks recognize that putting an emphasis on relationship building, the phrase I often use is honor the relationship before the task, right? Before I think you can ask people to do things or to mobilize around something or to, kind of commit to something, they have to feel known, they have to feel loved and cared for and valued. I've had missteps along the way like anybody else. I've always, I think, tried to own those missteps. But I think at the end of the day, my expectation in coming to St. John's was to further the mission of the school. And I think that I'm grateful that I've had a wonderful team of people that I've been working with, a wonderful community that has supported this mission. I think if you stay true to the mission, it's hard to really stray from the path. And I think we've been very, very much focused on providing an excellent education for young men in a place where we bring Christ to life and honor the dignity of each person that comes to school here, and prepare young men, as I always say, we're preparing you for college, but most importantly, to live lives of meaning and purpose. And that's a lofty goal to reach each and every day, but something I hope that people feel like we were constantly striving for that every day during my 8 years.
Yeah. I want to retouch on what you said about relationships, because that resonates with me. I really do agree, at least from my almost 4 years here, how important the importance of relationships, be it relationships with my teachers, with my peers, with the administration, and what I would argue most importantly is my increased relationship with my faith and God. And in that regard, I would say that I'm forever grateful to St. John's for opening my eyes in that and allowing me to build relationships with, people, and I owe a lot to that. But I also owe a lot to my faith.
Yeah.
I owe a lot of my faith to the community that St. John's allowed me to grow in. That
makes me very, very, very happy to hear that, right? Because again, relationships drive everything. And again, like you said, it's relationships with the people that are around you, your peers, the caring and trusting adults that are here in the community working with you. It's relationship with what it is that you're studying, right? Making it relevant, making it something that will contribute to, again, a productive and healthy and future for you, but also as important, if not more important than all of that, when we were opened as a school 125 years ago, one of the main purposes for that was to bring young men closer to their Creator, right, and to their God. And so for me to hear that 125 years later, that's still happening in a very healthy and productive way, makes me extremely proud of what we're doing here every day. So I appreciate you, Johnny, sharing that with me.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the main selling points of St. John's is the community and the brotherhood and everything. And to go along with that, you need a great faculty, a great group of teachers, great group of administrators, great group of staff members at St. John's. How have you affected the faculty personally, and how have the faculty affected you?
That's a great question. I think anybody who's been involved in education knows that great schools are made up by great people, like you said. And there are the folks that are in regular contact with our students, which are our faculty, our coaches. They serve as coaches, the outside coaches who come in, club moderators. I mean, all the different things. You guys have traveled with teachers. Our students travel with teachers either on global encounters or other academic trips and things like that. So great people make a great school, and St. John's is very, very fortunate throughout its history to have amazing people who have come to this school who, first and foremost, believe in the mission, right, of bringing Christ to life in young men, and having them achieve, really develop their God-given talents in service of the community. But also folks who, I often describe the faculty here at St. John's as these are individuals who are, they're experts in their discipline, right? They really are folks who are masters at the material that they're working with the students on every single day. But you couple that with people who are deeply committed to mission and deeply committed to educating young men, right? Because I think that's what we specialize in, right? I tell parents that all the time. It's like we're in the boy business, right? And we have faculty and staff and administrators who believe in being in the boy business and how important that is. I would say more so today than ever before. So we have a wonderful faculty that work here at the school. They're people who deeply care about what they do and how they do it. But also we're extremely blessed with an amazing staff, right? And so those folks that maybe aren't in front of a classroom or aren't working with students in a classroom but are helping support that, whether it's the admissions office and getting really great kids and families into the school, or the advancement team that's really trying to advance the mission of the school and making sure that we have the resources that we need to be the best all-boys institution in Central Mass and beyond, or folks in buildings and grounds, right, who just day after day, week after week, year after year, I hear people talk about how beautiful this campus is, right, and they can't believe when they walk into a building that there are 915 boys that walk through these halls every single day, right? But in large part, that has to do with our buildings and ground staff. So, they have, in terms of the effect and impact they've had on me, they have inspired me to be the best leader that I can be at this point in time and in the history of the school. They've pushed me to be better, right, and to, I think, in many ways, even exceed things, exceed sort of the expectations that we talked about before, exceed those, that I ever thought possible, and I hope in some ways that it's been a reciprocal thing, right? Where I have pushed our community to be the best version of itself possible, because that's what our students and families and our alumni and this community needs, is for us to be the best that we can be each and every day. So I hope ultimately it was a reciprocal relationship where we just constantly pushed each other to be the best that we could be.
Can't complain about being the best, that's for sure.
It's something to strive for, right? But we do it with great humility, right? I mean, that's a piece too that I focus on a great deal. Like, we've got a lot of great things happening here, but it's amazing how humble, I think truly humble we are as a community, and the great people who work here are very humble about what they do. And I think sometimes we need to shine a spotlight on the amazing work that our faculty, staff, administration, and students do. And I think we're doing a better job today than ever before. So I'm very proud of that.
Certainly agree with that.
Being the headmaster of a school is no small feat. It's obviously an enormous responsibility, and it takes a great deal of effort. And we were wondering how you have found a balance between that, between your duties as headmaster, your family, your personal life, as well as taking into consideration our school motto, Concordia, res padre croissant. So now I turn it over to you. Yeah,
that's a great question. It's interesting because that's been sort of top of mind, in particular over the last few months, as I've been working with Dr. Horgan, who's coming in as the next head of school here at St. John's. He's got a young family. His daughter is about the same age as my daughter. Actually, the same exact age as my daughter when I started here, and my little one was, just a few months, or a couple years old when I started here. So I've been talking a lot with him about that. I'll give an answer, but I'm sure that my wife would have a very, very different answer about how well I actually balance, kind of do the life-work balance thing, because this can be a job that can be all-consuming, and it is all-consuming in many ways. And so, the ability to separate yourself from the work, I think, actually makes you better at your job. The ability to find time for yourself and those things you enjoy is deeply important. And so I would say I've gotten better at it over the last 8 years. It's still a work in progress, because there are times that I spend a lot of time, and it's not even sort of the physical presence, which is an important piece, right? Because if you have an admissions open house or you have an accepted students night, like we've had a couple times over the last few weeks, like that takes physical time, but it really is the mental toll, I guess, for a lack of a better phrase, the mental toll that this job takes, because you really are, you're responsible for a community of over 1,000 people, and you're responsible for their well-being, and you're responsible to make sure that you're providing the best experience, not just for students, but for families and for faculty and staff and administrators. And so, yeah, it's a challenge, but I think it's important to try to create that balance. And, I've been fortunate to be able to coach, all 3 of my kids while I've been here at St. John's, coach all 3 of my kids in sports that they love to do, and I love to coach. And so I was able to coach my oldest while I was here in basketball and baseball, and I've coached my daughter in softball and in soccer, and I coach my little one in soccer and in basketball and baseball. So I carve out that time on purpose, because I think it's important. But it does take a bit of a toll on the family, and I am forever grateful to have an amazing partner in this whole thing, and my wife Jessica, who again, she understands it and appreciates the difficulty it is to run an institution like St. John's, but there are moments that I know it takes a toll on her as well, right? And so I'm deeply grateful for how supportive she's been, not just when I was here, but also at Nativity and the work that I was doing there. So yeah, it's a work in progress for sure.
Yeah. As you said, in the current very materialistic world we live in, it can often get the mental aspect of dealing with the challenges life may throw at you, such as the enormous responsibilities, can get underappreciated. But like you said, it's really important to always keep that in mind and to make sure that you're well before you can make others well. And that's not to neglect making others well, because that's obviously very important, but it's something that in a world full of material culture that is good to be brought to light.
Yeah, I mean, you hear a lot about the whole sort of the analogy to what they say when you're in an airplane, right? Like you got to put, the oxygen mask on yourself before you help other people, because if you're not breathing properly, then you're going to pass out before you can help anybody else, right? And so, and I think, during COVID, that was a real challenge, right? Because I felt an immense responsibility to this community, especially with the decision that I made to return to school, and no other school in the state was doing what we were doing, right? And people thought I was crazy, and, you could probably imagine there were folks that were calling for me to be fired, and this is irresponsible. But again, I knew the type of community that we had. I knew the type of students that were committed to being in school, and families, and everybody. Really, the charge was to do the right thing, and folks did that, right? So, but yeah, there is an immense responsibility here, but also something, again, that my wife often reminds me of is that people take cues from you, right, as the head of the school, and if you don't sort of set aside that time for yourself and for your family, then it's hard for other people to sort of have the permission, for a lack of a better phrase, to do that. And so I think I've tried to, right? And I use the phrase a lot, family first, right? When I'm speaking to a colleague who's going through something and maybe needs to take some time off or whatever, my phrase is always family first, and I mean that, right? I mean, the work will get done, but family always should come first.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What you said specifically about COVID was obviously very nothing to take lightly. In a state where no one could really see what was going to happen, that was huge for me as someone who came in as a shy person, didn't really know what they wanted to do, but being in person, getting to know my classmates and my teachers as well better versus just sitting in my room with a mask or sitting in my room looking at a computer screen.
Yeah.
It really definitely helped keep my development on the right track. So that decision, I would say, definitely has paid off.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, and again, it was everything from the plan that Mrs. Granados put together, to transition to remote learning right away in the spring of 2020, to the plan, the folks who all sat around the sort of virtual table, right, because we weren't in person, the virtual table all that summer preparing for what the fall was going to look like and how we were going to try to pull it off, even to Lieutenant Governor Polito, right, who had her son Bobby was here during that time, and she was a wonderful source of information, of again, of factual science, right? So we were basing all of our decisions on the medical professionals and the scientists who were advising the state on things, right? And so she was a tremendous resource for us. And so, and again, I said it over and over again that year, and even the years following that, I'm very, very much aware of the personal and professional sacrifices that faculty, staff, and administrators needed to make to be here in person and to teach their classes so that we could really fulfill our mission as a school, because ultimately that's what it was about. And that's something, again, when I talked previously about the inspiration of the folks, the adults that work in this school, that was a moment that will always be kind of crystallized in my mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right, so Mr. Zequeira, you spent a lot of time with our community, especially during COVID and trying to coordinate everything, as you've mentioned. What are you going to miss the most about St. John's community, whether it be the faculty, students, or the environment itself?
We mentioned it before, right? So St. John's is known for the community, the relationships, and I count myself very, very blessed that an important part of my job, I reflect on it often, especially with the faculty and staff, that I'm given the immense blessing to be sort of the keeper of stories of St. John's, right? So when I go off and, a couple weeks ago we were in Florida, right? Or whether it's visiting somebody in Philadelphia or going down to North Carolina to visit with folks, folks share their St. John's, what I refer to as their St. John's story with me. And, time and time again, I hear about the amazing impact, the transformative impact that this place has had on young men and men, again, for decades, right, over a century. And so, I think we should never, ever take for granted the work that we do each and every day. Because, in the same way that one of the first conversations I had after I had been named headmaster in 2016 was with an alumnus from the class of 1948 who pulled me aside and, he said to me, Alex, the only thing you need to know about St. John's was I can capture in my experience in one sentence. He said, I could have learned 4 + 4 = 8 anywhere, but I learned to become the man, the father, the husband, the leader that I am today at St. John's, right? And that's an awesome and amazing responsibility that we have. And so, I will miss the community. I'll miss hearing those stories and miss hearing the impact of this institution on the lives of so many. And not just the alums who went to school here. I mean, the former faculty and staff who I talk to regularly when I see them out in the community or see them at St. John's events, they loved their time here at St. John's, whether it was a couple of years or a couple of decades. They loved their time here. And so, there's so many special things that are happening here at the school. But ultimately, it's the relationships, and I forged some wonderful personal relationships with people here that they'll always be lifelong friends for me. And I work very hard at kind of keeping connections and, keeping my relationships. And so I look forward to that, but it'll be different not seeing them every day. And ultimately, the work we do is for the students, right? And you guys literally are an inspiration, right? Whether I'm in my 8th grade Spanish class that I'm teaching this year, which has been wonderful. They're a wonderful group of guys who keep me on my toes and make me be a better teacher every single day, to, watching you guys perform on the stage, or watching guys competing for the school, or getting up during a prayer service and sharing. I mean, all of those moments, right? I'll miss the relationships and I'll miss the moments, because there are many that have kind of been woven together into the fabric of St. John's that'll always be part of me, and part of my great memories of my 8 years here. Yeah.
So in your illustrious 8 years at the helm, there have been no shortage of great accomplishments. Yeah. In your eyes, what do you believe is your crowning jewel or greatest accomplishment in your time here? Oh my gosh, that's a tough question to answer, because first and foremost, I don't think I can and should take credit for anything, because everything that we accomplish here, we accomplish as a team, and we accomplish, and I haven't really mentioned our board of trustees, who are an amazing group of people. And when I talk about inspiration, I mean, these are folks who are volunteers, right? They don't get paid to be on our board, yet they dedicate, in some cases, some of them at certain points of the year are spending more time doing St. John stuff than their own either personal stuff or professional stuff. So it's incredible what folks do. But I think what we've been able to accomplish together, I'll talk about it as a we, because it's not a me or an I. I think the things that I'm very proud of that we've been able to accomplish together, I mean, I think one of the lasting legacies maybe of my tenure will be the introduction of the middle school program here at St. John's. Not something that was, interestingly, most resistance came from students, right? So the students who were in the high school at that time were really concerned about how it was going to change the culture in their eyes for the worse, right? And I think it's done the exact opposite. I think it's really elevated a group of young men in our middle school, because they have guys like you to look up to and see what you do and see who they could be. And at the same time, you have older guys who now look at a group of younger students and really see them as kind of little brothers, and realize, we've got eyes on us, right? So we've got to do the right thing and be the right type of person as a role model. But the ability for St. John's to be in the life of a student for 6 years rather than 4, I always say we do a great job. We do an amazing job in 4 years, transforming boys into young men, right? And to also start to see those 6 years now play out. Next year will be the first group of kids that have went through our middle school. It'll be 5 years, but in a couple of years, it'll be a first group of kids that went through the 6-year program. And I'm excited to see, kind of from afar, how that's going to play out. But we've also been able to do, I think, some amazing things here at the school, with the introduction of the Gregory Academic Center, right? That didn't exist, that came on board my second or third year, some significant, the makerspace for robotics and engineering, supported by the Kelly family. That's something I'm very proud of. The renovations to, the work that we did out on Pioneer Field, to be able to provide a space that could be utilized more than just on game day, right? So it really expanded our access to outdoor athletic and recreation facilities. That's extremely important. And I think those are kind of the tangible things that you can point to, right? You can say, hey, that space on campus didn't exist, or that position didn't exist, or that division didn't exist. But I hope that when people reflect back on my 8 years here, they also will reflect on what I perceive as, again, working together. I think we've advanced this idea of St. John's being a place for everyone, right? A place of belonging. When I think now that we have 7 student resource groups, right? And those are opportunities for students to gather with people who have similar interests, similar backgrounds, similar faith practices, whatever it might be. And they have a space on campus where they can come together and then, rejoin the broader community, right? It hasn't segmented our community. I think it's made our community stronger. But really the emphasis on belonging, the emphasis on well-being, you guys have been through a lot. We've been through a lot with the pandemic, but even before that, we were talking about, the student well-being and mental, social, and emotional health here at the school. So, I think there are the tangible things that you can point to
that weren't there. But I hope that there's, again, a deeper sense of belonging for our students, that everybody feels like they can bring their full selves to campus every day, and really, enjoy St. John's as they are, not as they think they need to be.
Yeah. It's obviously going to be very hard to pinpoint one thing. As you said, you could go on and on about all the great things that have happened in the past 8 years. It's been really fun to be a part of that for the past 3.5, and to see, like you said, the development of the middle school to be much more than any student could have expected, to become little brothers, like just as you said, to see these groups really begin to take shape, and just like you said, build this community up even stronger than it already was. And I really think that that's been very important. It's something that's going to last far beyond this era, is how tightly wound the school is together,
Yeah.
how everyone is there for each other, and how we really are a brotherhood in that regard. How we're there for each other, everyone just gets it in that regard.
Yeah. No, again, there have been moments of challenge and slip-ups along the way, but I think overall, the school continues to move in a very positive direction. And in the recognition, again, I've been deeply touched, as I mentioned before, like I was educated by the Jesuits, but I have been deeply, deeply touched and I think formed by the Zequeira brothers over the course of the last 8 years. And, I often think and reflect and pray on this idea that each one of us is a unique expression of God's love, right? And the uniqueness and linked to that uniqueness is dignity, right? The fact that we honor the dignity of every person that comes onto our campus with great love and care. I'm excited to see that continue, because I know, I've known Dr. Horgan for a long time, even before he entered into this process, right, of the head of school process, and I know he will continue to build and expand that sense of belonging, that sense of community, that sense that St. John's is truly a place for everybody.
Absolutely.
Mr. Zequeira, you've spent a lot of time at St. John's, but now you're moving on. And what do you see for yourself in the future? Where are you headed?
It's a great question. So I've been very fortunate to have been named president of St. Ignatius Loyola Academy in Baltimore, in South Baltimore City, in Maryland. And a wonderful school, a school that's been around for 30, actually just celebrated their 30th anniversary this fall. It's a nativity model school, so again, similar to the work that I was doing at Nativity Worcester, a school that I helped open 20 years ago as the founding principal of the school. And again, a community, it's a school and a community that works with students and families who are living at or below the federal poverty line, and providing them with an educational opportunity that not only prepares them for high school, again, not just academically, but socially and personally and spiritually. Prepares them for high school, but then also continues to work with them through high school and through college, really with the goal of having their graduates complete college, right? Which the school is predominantly African American, and for the African American population in Baltimore, that is a huge accomplishment to be able to graduate from high school, go to college, and complete college. So I'm excited to get back to that work, because it's something that I deeply enjoyed in my time connected to Nativity Worcester. It's a Jesuit school, which again is in some ways it's going home for me, because I was educated by the Jesuits from 7th grade all the way through graduate school, and so the spirituality and the charism and the values are deeply personal to me, because they helped form me as a young man and as a man and as a father and as a leader. So that's exciting, and it's a school that's in a great position, right? It's 30 years, which within the context of St. John's, 125 years doesn't seem like a lot, but it's actually one of the oldest nativity model schools in the country, which is neat. A wonderful board there, great team of people that I'm going to be working with, that I've gotten to know over the last few months, and excited for the work that's ahead. And again, every place has its own set of unique challenges, and I do believe, again, whether we're a chief administrator, a head of school, or a principal, or a faculty member, or a staff member, or whatever, I truly believe we're called to be in certain places at certain times for a reason. and so I'm eager to explore why I'm being called to serve the Academy's community at this point, and hopefully again position it to continue to grow and serve its students and serve its mission. So it's an exciting time for the family. It's a little bit stressful getting kind of relocating, and my kids all have different reactions to it. And so we kind of work through that, you asked me what I'll miss about St. John's, but one thing I won't miss about St. John's are New England winters. As a South Florida boy, a Miami boy, not having 12 inches of snow to snow blow through is going to be pretty awesome. So yeah, but again, very grateful for my time here at St. John's, and very grateful to have spent time with you guys today. This has been really it's been really awesome. So I appreciate you guys making the time to do this.